Let's get into some coaching. This is going to be weekly, every Sunday evening, which is a perfect time. I don't really have a lot going on. It's 4 p.m. Eastern. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Coffee Fueled Stories. This is my first time doing this really, so I was like, maybe my earbuds won't work. My Google earbuds, or I might accidentally turn them off or something. But yeah, let's get into it. So the idea behind this Exercise Your Rights weekly is that we'll just do coaching questions. I can start out with a topic. I'm getting organized. Everybody. It's like really scary. But we have an April theme. I've been meaning to start organizing my content around themes and actually try to focus in on helpful information that I hear all the time in my coaching conversations. I just got out of a coaching conversation probably 10 minutes ago before this started. So it's funny how a million different books I'm working with about 13 books right now, but all the questions are usually about the same cover questions. This is what we were talking a lot about this in this last one was looking at the cover, deciding if the cover would work, because there's so many things to do with a cover. A cover is not just a piece of art, it's a piece of real estate. Advertising real estate is probably your best piece of real estate. And hello, Anne, thank you for joining. And sorry, the last time I did a live, I didn't know to look at comments, so I apologize to everybody that I ignored before. I was not trying to do that. I was just ignorant, just didn't know what I was doing. So anyways, we were talking about covers in this last coaching appointment that I just had. And I just thought I'd pass on a little bit of that, what we talked about. The last client that I had, his cover is fantastic, but the cover is going to be your best piece of real estate. So you want to make sure it's distinctive. It's not something that has so much detail on it that people aren't going to really be able to see it, because you get literally 3 seconds to grab somebody's attention. And hey, Linda Ann, thanks for joining. So you get 3 seconds to show somebody your cover and have them decide to click on it. And so that's something to take into consideration. That's why you notice a lot of covers are very bold and simple, because you really just want to grab attention fast. The other thing that we talked about in this last meeting, was how if you're going to make a series or you're trying for branding, because branding is great. Branding isn't just a catchword to talk about marketing and everything. Branding is great because branding makes it efficient. Once people know you and fall in love with your work, it's easier for you to communicate for them to come back if your covers match or if you have some branding elements. And that's why branding is so important. When you look at Nike, it automatically, you see that swoop, you see those colors, you understand that you're looking at Nike, and automatically you know this is the style, this is the quality I'm already familiar with. So you don't have to reintroduce yourself to somebody. And so we were talking about with covers, and I'm not going to get too far into this because we're actually going to be talking about something else. But since I was just talking about this with my last client, I thought it'd be fun to just discuss these covers here. The same person designed 2 of these. Whoops, these 2. This is actually the second cover. So the first cover I don't have a copy of right now. But the first cover, excuse me, is basically the same image, but with a fan. So this is the 4th cover in this series. So we had 3 books with 3 different publishers. The other one is Unquiet Spirits, which I also don't have a copy of. But this is what I want to point out with the covers. See how they match, especially these 2? They were designed to have the same reds, the same greens, and to fit together, because this one did really, really well. And it got a Bram Stoker and a Shirley Jackson and a whole bunch of stuff. That was Genevieve Flynn and Lee Murray edited this. I just have 2 stories in it. But it did phenomenally well. So what do you want to do? If you have a follow-up book, you want to match that cover, because then it communicates, like, you don't have to figure out, if you fell in love with this book, you already know what this book is about. So that's why it's so important to work on branding a little bit, and especially think of this with your covers. So this kind of matches this. And that was the next book I came out with after Tortured Willows. This is four of us getting together a poetry collection, which is Genevieve Flynn, Lee Murray, Christina Singh, and then myself. So we match. You can see it's a lot of the same reds, the same vibe. Though this is an individual book, this is a novel, so I wanted to go slightly different. So that's what we talked about with my last coaching appointment, was just the importance of covers and how much there is to think about with covers, and also the cover for the project, because all of these, not this one, but these are all designed by the same cover artist, as was this one. But you can see, completely different. They don't even look alike. This is a nonfiction, and it needed to be very simple. And you can see it. What does it say to you? You can use your writing to make money. That's what this book is about. And so, same cover artist, had to be a completely different message. So, anyways, segue. that was me talking about that. Thank you for everybody who's joining. Thanks, Martin. I see you in there. What we're really going to be talking about, though, and Mark, welcome. What we're really going to be talking about is April's theme. So all the month of April, each of these Substack Lives are going to be focusing on a different aspect of finding your authentic voice. And so if you read my post yesterday, how one question turned my writing from invisible to award-winning, I went, oh no. Okay, good. Linda Ann's screen froze. And this will be available as a replay too. So if you missed part of it, or if you're coming in late, you'll still be able to see it. But yesterday's post talked about how one question, literally one question, turned my writing from invisible to award-winning. That's actually the title. But I'll just tell you the story really quick, because I couldn't quite get into everything in the post, because, I don't want to bore everybody in my post, so I'm going to bore you here. Haha. It's just a little easier to tell all the story live. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat. That's what I'm here to do, is answer questions. But way back in the day, when I was first trying to write horror, I came from nonfiction, writing newspaper stories and working in newspapers too. I decided I was going to do horror. And I did End of May, which is about you actually don't know what race she is, but she's a newspaper reporter. Haha. And she's trying to uncover the secrets of the Jersey Devil. And then the next story I wrote, I think, was The Braid, which is a babysitter, very generic babysitter ghost story. And then there was a series, it was Mr. Bonejangles, but all of the stories are stories that was basically rehashing horror stories that I knew. Not really copying, but it was, all the protagonists were white. None of them had anything to do with me. None of my actual personality was in there, because I was trying to write appropriately. So then, flash forward a couple of years into my career, I had a mentor. He's wonderful, Brian Theowara. Most of you probably are familiar with him. He's awesome. He was the president of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association for a while. But he's very active in the community as a poet. And he's a wonderful person, just in general. But anyways, I was lucky enough to have Brian as my mentor. And he helped me by doing a few interviews and getting me in some publications, which is kind of like what mentors do, which is fantastic. But then he asked me this one question. He'd read a bunch of my work. And then he said, "Where are you in this work?" And I thought he meant I plagiarized it. So I got all like defensive, like, "What do you mean, where am I?" Wow, my voice is really not good today. And "What do you mean, where am I? I didn't plagiarize this. This is all my work." And then he's like, No. I don't mean that. I mean, where are you in this work? He said Asian. I'm mixed. I'm a third Asian, or a fourth Asian, Okinawan. But he said, you're Asian. You love tech gadgets. You love science fiction. Where are you in your work? It was true. Everything I'd written was pretty much like gothic ghost story type stuff. And gee, there's none of that out there, right? So anyways, he pointed out that all these things about me are not in my stories. About the same time, I had had an opportunity to submit to Where the Stars Rise by Laksha Media. It was an anthology. And up until that point, I hadn't really had any, well, I had had zero professional sales. I'd had some moderate success with like getting stuff in, different magazines and stuff, but like pretty unknown. So never, and no professional sales. So I decided I was going to try that, what Brian said, and I was going to put myself into my story. So I wrote a story that was completely different from anything I had written before, and it involves science fiction in a dystopian type setting. A lot of my opinions about money and consumerism and things like that are at play. I got really personal with it. The story is about race. It's about a mother who grows up Asian in a white world and how she desperately doesn't fit in, and she wants uh, her daughter at some point to belong and to not ever have that sense of not belonging. So she uses technology to make sure that her Asian daughter would be blonde, Disney princess. But then she moves to her own people, and then her daughter suffers the same thing. Anyways, I don't want to give away spoilers, but I put a lot of myself into that. There's a lot of tech gadgets. There's a lot of things I believe in that story. And lo and behold, that was my first professional sale. It was amazing. Not only was it my first professional sale, but that story, it's Vanilla Rice, went on to be included in three other anthologies or three other books who have all won something or gotten a high level finalist. So that story has been associated with Shirley Jackson's. It didn't win the Shirley Jackson. The book it was in won the Shirley Jackson, and a Bram Stoker, and then a Bram Stoker finalist book, and then I forgot, but something else like that. But anyways, everywhere. Oh, and then the original place that it showed up, where the stars rise, that was an Aurora finalist, I think, and then yeah. Anyways, it's in the post yesterday. I can't remember all the things, but that story was my breakout story. We talk about breakout stories. That story is my breakout story, and I can attribute that success to Brian Theo Wara's advice of find my authentic voice. So that's why it's so important, because only we can tell our stories, right? Only I can tell you the story that I would tell. And Linda Ann, in right here in the chat, only Linda Ann can tell the stories that Linda Ann can tell. I happen to know her personally. She's a wonderful, very unique, individualistic person. Um, and that's why her work shines, because she puts herself into her work. And so that's what we're talking about this week. As far as coaching, that is going to make the difference in your work. So because I work with so many first-time writers, I see this mistake. Like we read the masters, right? We read Stephen King, we read Neil Gaiman, or we read, I can't think of anybody else's name off the top of my head. Look at my bookshelf. Yeah, anyways, we read these stories that we love, and then we try to emulate them. When we're emulating them, there's nothing wrong with that, because that's how we learn, right? Masters, painters paint the masters so that they can learn the techniques. But there has to be a time when we stop emulating and we start creating ourselves, like when we put our own voice into that. And I feel like our society really tries to, we've got all these double standards, like think outside the box, but don't color outside of the lines, things like that. And so I think in our work, we're told to be artists, to be, rare and individual and authentic. Excuse me, but we constantly talk about how people didn't do something right. I'm not naming names, but anybody who knows me knows who I'm talking about. But my story, Bittersweets, or book, it was my novella. It was actually my first Bram Stoker finalist, talking about using authentic voice. And that book is all me. The main character is a nameless male figure, probably is definitely me, which is why a lot of people get like this confusion of, is he male or is he female? You don't know. It's because it's me. But that book wound up being my first finalist. when I was workshopping that book, I went to a very prestigious workshop. I paid $800 for this workshop, and it was awesome. There was a lot of really good things about it, but one of the instructors at this workshop told me, do not publish that book, Bittersweets. It's a terrible book because nobody wants to read about recreational death, renewable death, which is what it's about. Essentially, in the story, you go to a hotel called the Bittersweets, and you can have a death experience where you actually die, and then the resuscitators bring you back. And so, why are all the reasons you would want to die and come back? That's what the story is about. So, anyways, I was told by this very prestigious expert in the field, do not publish that book because nobody would be interested in renewable death. It's a terrible idea. It's impractical. Basically, what are you thinking? Well, I didn't listen. I'm really glad I didn't listen because I was kind of still following Brian Theowora's advice of follow my authentic voice. And so I did. I followed my authentic voice. My authentic voice would love renewable death. I'm just telling you. If anybody gets the technology to have renewable death, I am there. I don't care if it sounds painful. I would experience it if there was a guarantee to come back. And that's pretty much, I say pretty much, a guarantee to come back. Otherwise, I'd be giving you spoilers. So yeah, that's the power of authentic voice, everybody. I listened. I did not allow myself to be censored, my voice to be censored. I didn't try to tell an appropriate story. I had a very high level person that I respected a lot, telling me, don't do this. We have to remain true to ourselves. It's good to listen to the experts. It's good to listen to the people in the know and consider what they're saying. But ultimately, it's your work. And you are responsible for the genius that goes into it. And it's going to be your genius, not somebody else's genius, not somebody telling you what's appropriate genius. It's going to be yours. So that's what I want to leave you with this week. And that's what this post is about. We talk in this post, I tell you this story, but with less detail, but a little more concise, where I feel like I've wandered. I don't mention like all the stuff about bittersweets. But basically, the message is right from where you are and who you are, and you will have success. The rest is all stuff that can be learned. You can learn editing, you can learn plot, you can learn voice and dialogue. These are all things that can be learned. But tapping into who you are requires you to know who you are first. And then actually having the bravery to tap into that is where I think the line divides between everybody else and incredible creativity, incredible art that you're creating. So in the post this week, I do give some tips about uncovering your voice. This ironic that my voice is disappearing today as I'm talking about using your authentic voice. This is not my authentic voice. This is a scratchy, I think allergies or recovering from being sick voice. But the first thing for uncovering your voice, and please ask questions. If you want to drop a question in the chat, doesn't actually have to be about this because I want to use these sessions, these exercise your voice sessions every Sunday to also work on coaching issues. Like if you've got a question about coaching, publishing, anything in the industry, let's try to answer it together. Provided I have a voice. So the first tip to uncovering your voice is to write what you want to read. I went through my Edgar Allan Poe phase, love Edgar Allan Poe, but I don't read Edgar Allan Poe that much anymore. That was when I was a kid. I loved Edgar Allan Poe. He still influences my work today as he influences many of us, but that is not the book that I'm grabbing when I want to read. I am probably going to be grabbing something dystopian, something with technology, something with color changed lights because I'm a sucker for them. Probably a dog at some point. So this is what I want to read. So that's what I need to write. And I guarantee if you are writing what you want to read, there are other people out there that want to read that. Also, lean into those things that make you quirky and make you you. And that is the mistake that I was making. I'm mixed Asian, which is a pretty distinctive perspective. I'm not Asian and I'm not white, so I've got kind of this mixed up perspective on all kinds of things. I love color change. I will actually be mesmerized. If you ever want to get me in your van, the murder van, just have color change lights and I'll probably just follow you home. Um, I can have a dark sense of humor. Band-aids disgust me. I can face a demon, no problem. But if you throw a wet band-aid at me, I will run screaming. They're so blah. Anyways, I don't even want to talk about wet band-aids anymore. These are things that I need to put in my work because they make me me. Um, I love monsters. I will always sympathize with the monster and find the monster as a hero. Um, that's my perspective. If I write like somebody else, then I am giving up all of that wonderful, unique real estate. And ironically, we give up our personal real estate like that. These are that's what makes our stories so special. And we give that up in the quest to be special. Then we sit there and try to figure out what is trending or what things can sell our stories. You will sell your story because only you're the only one that can tell it. So that's why we want to embrace those quirks. And also, I say you don't have to listen to the professionals or the industry leaders. I'm not saying don't listen to them. I'm just saying listen to them judiciously. If I had listened to that expert about publishing bittersweets or don't publish bittersweets, I would not have published that book. And, wouldn't have a Stoker finalist. That book really opened a lot of doors for me, which was fantastic. I wouldn't have any of that if I had listened. So use your best judgment. And I did really consider what he said, and I almost didn't do it. By the same token, talking about listening or not listening, I had sent Marge Simon, I can name this name because this was a good story. I had sent Marge Simon a copy of one of my poetry books. I was like getting ready to publish. And I'd sent it to her as a blurb. And then I invited her, I always do this, to give me her honest opinion. And I did say I wasn't sure. I think it was going to be my second poetry collection. And I had said I wasn't quite sure if it was ready. And so Marge was wonderful. Marge Simon, by the way, if you ever get to meet her in person, is like she's just like the one of the best people. She's one of my favorite people. But she looked at it and she told me it is not ready. And so I was like, because I feel that way. And Marge Simon, I respect a lot. And she also says that. And then I reread it and I agreed it was not ready. So I pulled it. I did not publish it. It took me a year to rewrite that poetry collection. And then I published it. But I published it. I was super happy with it. And it was great. It didn't win anything. Wah, wah. But it's not about winning, right? It's about actually putting out our best and distinct and individual work and showing who we are in art. So, yeah, you choose if you're going to listen to somebody or not. But it's good to know yourself so that you can judge what they're saying if it's bullshit or if you think it really is something important for you to listen to. So, and that is why I said listen and trust. Pay close attention to reader feedback that deeply resonates with your work. Notice reoccurring themes or elements that your readers appreciate. And what are you becoming known for? That is your voice. So I have had people, I did have a coaching appointment in the very beginning when I started coaching for other people and as a job. I had coached somebody's short story and I was a little too heavy handed with my edits, I will say. And I probably put a lot of me in their story, and they were listening, and they were just like whatever I said, they were just putting in their story. And so I think I overdid it because then when somebody else read the story, they actually asked me if that was my story. It had somebody else's name on it, and they asked me if that was me writing under a pen name. That is what we want, not for editing clients. We want it to be their voice, but that's what we want is our voice to be so distinctive that people will recognize it from reading. And the reason why they recognize it, I'm not going to get into too many details of the actual story because I don't want, uh, I just don't want to call that story out. It's a beautiful story though. But the elements were sympathy for the monster. There was a baby monster involved, as sometimes happens. I really like the whole monster nuclear family idea. The good guys actually wound up being the bad guys. It was a little bit anti-military ish, anti-corporate voices in there, which tends to be in my work. Um, and so yeah, and then just the wording, the way it was written, the way I would pause and then go deep descriptive, signified it as being my work. So that's what you want to aim for. That's how much of you want to put in your work, is that people can look at your words and recognize that as you. So, and I think that is about all I have to say on that. If you want, you can watch the replay for this. You can also just go to the post and read the original post where I have a little more concise information for what I just said. I also have a download. If you are a little bit witchy and you feel like doing anything, there is a download in this week where I actually get into a find your voice tea ritual. That you start the tea on the new moon, and then you drink the tea on the full moon. And there's a bunch of stuff you do in the in between. And when you drink the tea at the full moon, like you picture it like the dark, and then the light of the moon is growing every night, and that is illuminating your true voice. So that is in there, plus all the usual author opportunities. I think there's like 100 or something open submission calls, closed submission calls, and other writerly things, events that you can go to, classes, master classes. Something I've changed up with this issue, because I changed a lot of things in the newsletter this week, is there's no more news. Like I used to share people's books and everything. I still am sharing those, but I'm just sharing them in my notes where they kind of get more traction than in the actual newsletter. So I will continue to share things in my notes. I'm also not really doing a lot of social media except for on Substack, because Substack is just awesome and I love everybody here. And other social media is like, all right, but I just wanted to all lead to Substack because this is where the party is. And in the Opportunities Hub, which is the algorithm-free closed community that we have. I think we have about 300 members in there right now. We have open mics every other week. We have Nikki DeCouster does astrology and astrology focused. Well, right now she's been going over the DSM-5 and kind of talking about that with astrology. We have, what else do we have? We have game nights. Stephen Schwartz does game nights in there with his small town tales, but we're also going to start doing like online Scrabble and some other stuff. Basically, it's just an ongoing party. We just had our writer's block party, and that is where we burnt. It was just a long, well, we had Dale L. Roberts speak to us, which was amazing. And then we had a long open mic. I think that lasted like 3 hours. And then we ended it with the quarterly burning of the imposter. And that is where we write what is holding us back as artists on an effigy, I guess. He's a little cardboard guy. He doesn't feel a thing. But we write what is holding us back, kind of like a Yule log or scapegoat concept. Write what is holding us back as a group on this guy, and then we light him on fire. And we let go of our imposter syndrome as he burns. We picture him burning, and then those ashes get sprinkled over the cobblestone roads of Brazil. So they are gone from you. But we do that every quarter at the Writer's Block Party. So these are all things that I hope that you will come interact with. I'm going to be doing this next Sunday at the same time. If you have writer questions, like right now, we kind of went over the post that I just did, and we talked a little bit about covers because that's something I've been coaching on this week a couple of times. So it's fresh in my mind that I'd like to use this session as basically free coaching. Coaching can be expensive. I get that. I've had to raise my rates like 4 times now, I think, since I started actually charging for this, because there's too much demand. So this is where you can ask those questions, though, and as a group, we can answer them and find the answers and get help. So next week, feel free to come with your coaching sessions if you want, and we will go over them live. We're going to have interviews with coaches, so it won't just be me on here. We're certifying coaches, publishing coaches in the community in the Opportunities Hub. And so as those guys are graduating with their certification, I'm going to be bringing those guys on here as well to talk about coaching and answer coaching questions, because I don't know everything, right? Nobody knows everything. So it'd be good to get some other perspectives. So I thank you guys for joining me. This has been fun. It looks like everything went right. I was kind of like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but we're going to figure it out. And we did. And I think it worked good. So this will be up. You can go back and watch it. It'll be at opportunities.substack.com, my opportunities, which are on Substack right now. And then, yeah, I'll do it again next week. But bring me some coaching questions, because that's like the fun of it. I love puzzles and I love improv. And I really want to answer some questions live. And there's even a way that I can bring people on here. So if you want to come on here with me and we'll talk about coaching issues, let's do it. We can talk about publishing, we can talk about marketing, we can talk about distribution of books, we can talk about contracts, we can talk about actual writing, which honestly I feel like is the easiest part of writing a book, is the writing of the book. And it's the promotion and it's the publishing and everything else that winds up getting hard, especially with an industry that is changing every time you blink. Like as soon as I figure something out, it's all changed. We can talk about platforms. We can talk about editors and editing issues. The sky is the limit. And if I don't know something, I will say, I don't know that. And then that becomes the next topic that I can research and we can talk about the next week. So that's it. This has been over half an hour. I don't want to keep you too long. It's Sunday. I know everybody has like a million things to do. I have an essay to finish right now about Wes Craven for a project that was due 2 days ago. So I need to go finish that, or I'm going to get in trouble from Mark Geyer, and I do not want to be in trouble from him. Have you seen what he writes? So I'm going to go finish this essay. But yeah, I will see you guys next week. You guys are beautiful humans. You're amazing humans. You're incredible artists. If you see the imposter syndrome get near you, I want you to kick that imposter syndrome in the butt and tell it to get the fuck away. Excuse my language, but you don't need it, because I know I'm seeing the names that are watching, and I know you are good artists, and we just beat ourselves up, and it's ridiculous. Why do we do that? The world is here to beat us up. We do not need to beat ourselves up. And so I'm going to leave you with that. And I'm going to end so that I can post this. And I will see you next week. And thank you for being here on the Exercise Your Rights revamp. And if you're wondering what Exercise Your Rights is, I talked about that at the very beginning. So I will see you guys later. Goodbye. Have a beautiful week. Go write many beautiful things and tell me about them in the chat. Oh, I'm going to say, if you have a question, send it to me. And you don't have to do it live here, but I can still research the question and answer it next week in the live. So, and that is all I'm going to say. I'm going to hit end because now I'm just droning on and I need an editor. And the end button is my editor. So, all right, bye, you guys. Have a beautiful week. Stay being beautiful humans. I love you all.